It's not Bowling Green or Tulsa at the Shoe. It's Oklahoma in Norman. Brandon Zimmerman from the Buckeye Battle Cry joins us to break down the Buckeyes traveling to take on the Sooners in what's been an anticipated game throughout the offseason for the college football season, coast to coast. Just not concerning these two fan bases, but legitimate consideration for the college football playoff, as it would appear, Brandon. So this one's going to be pretty huge.
Yep. Once again, thanks for having me on. This is definitely a game that we've all been looking forward to for a while. A little of the luster was taken off when Oklahoma lost to Houston in week one. We kind of built it up, thinking it's going to be two top five teams facing off in Norman. But this is still a huge game. I mean, you think this is number 1 and 2 teams all time for the AP polls. This is two great traditions, two great fan bases, two great teams coming together to meet in Norman, which will be a blast.
Yeah, I believe the last time they faced off was 1983. I remember it well. John Frank caught a couple touchdowns for the Buckeyes. They went to Norman and won a ball game unexpectedly against the top 5 Oklahoma team. All right, looking at this matchup, of course, let's start with the Buckeyes on offense. It got off to another slow start last week. Really, in the first half, there was nothing there. It was all defense in terms of putting touchdowns on the board against Tulsa. In terms of what you've seen out of Oklahoma against certainly a quality opponent in Houston that they couldn't handle in a number of areas, and then Louisiana Monroe, your thoughts about the matchup of Ohio State, let's say, running the football against the Oklahoma front?
After week one, I think people had unrealistic expectations of what the Buckeye offense was going to do. I mean, they aren't going to come out and score 77 points every week. They went out there and ran the ball. They threw the ball deep. They did anything that they wanted to do against Bowling Green. Against Tulsa, it was a little more of a struggle. You could see that the offensive line, which has 3 new starters on it, isn't as great as we thought they were week one. They pulled it together and became very solid. But that whole first half, Mike Weber had no room to run. And this is against a Tulsa defense, which is nowhere near as good as Oklahoma's defensive line is. So the Buckeyes running game is going to be very key to opening up whatever passing game that the Buckeyes can get going with JT Barrett. Buckeyes have kind of stuck with the same thing that they always do, where they kind of pound the ball with Mike Weber. They'll use Curtis Samuel, they'll use Wilson, they'll use JT Barrett as kind of a change of pace, move it to the outside type of run game. But if they don't control the middle with Michael Jordan, the freshman, Elfline, and Billy Price, it could be a long day for the Buckeye offense, because they showed that if they don't get the run game going, it's going to be a while before they get rolling.
Yeah, the difference in the running game from the first half against Tulsa to drive number 1 in the second half, and then basically throughout the second half, was completely night and day. So it didn't appear as though that they were doing anything specifically different. I'm sure that they picked out a few tendencies that they could find, but it might have just been a stern tongue lashing at halftime to get the boys up front motivated. Looking at the passing game, JT Barrett, again, it was similar to the Bowling Green, although it extended throughout the first half. He had his issues, also offensive line related. It's going to be interesting, as we discussed last week, Brandon, who emerges at wide receiver against the top shelf opponent in regards to the rotation, the targets, and also who's going to finally make the plays.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, right now they've got Curtis Samuel, who is making plays. He's averaging over 200 yards a game rushing and receiving, but they're definitely going to need somebody on the outside to open it up. And they've been expecting Noah Brown to be that person. These first 2 games, the Buckeyes have kind of been rotating around 10 different wide receivers in and out. So Noah Brown hasn't been that guy. Paris Campbell, the other starter, hasn't been that guy yet, because they are rotating in and out so much. I'll be really curious this weekend to see if they get into a steady rotation where it's Noah Brown out there most of the time, it's Paris Campbell out there most of the time, and then Wilson and Samuel kind of work in the middle, because they need Noah Brown or Paris Campbell to step out and stretch the field.
When we think Oklahoma in recent years, we think big offense, we think numbers. Samaje Perine, of course, tore up the Kansas defense as I guess a lot of running backs do, but he really tore him up a few years ago for a big 400-yard day and setting the all-time rushing record for a single game. He's been more than that. He's been exceptional, although he's off to a bit of a rough start this year. The passing game's been dynamic, but missing Sterling Shepard from last year. Baker Mayfield's a bit of a wizard back there in regards to escapability and making plays out of nothing. The thing that comes to mind, Brandon, for me, though, is people forget about the blocking portion of it is pretty important as well. And against elite opponents, the last couple times out, Oklahoma's had an issue blocking edge rushers and the speed rush from the outside in particular. Maybe it's also been a push in the middle, but Houston really got to the quarterback. And in the Orange Bowl in the college football playoff against Clemson, that really decided the game in my mind. That was the biggest difference between the two teams, is that they just couldn't keep Clemson's great defensive ends off of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, and that's kind of what's been shown here. The last two big games for the Sooners is you need to get to Mayfield early, force him out of the pocket and on the run, where his completion percentage is way low. He's just not he's not comfortable out there. If the Buckeyes can get to Mayfield early, if they can shut down the run and just show their dominance on the defensive line, the Sooners, just like they did against Houston, hopefully will just abandon the run, which will play into the Buckeyes' strength right now, which is their pass defense.
Yeah, so then looking at the running game, Samaje Perine's the guy that comes to mind. Of course, Joe Mixon was a 5-star recruit that Oklahoma beat back just about everybody who was after him. He's been the main ball carrier because of some Perine injuries, and just that being the design going into the season to split those guys. But he's more of a home run threat. Obviously, a challenge against an Ohio State defense that, despite a few leaks in the first half against Tulsa, against the run, has been pretty stout through 2 games.
Yeah. So the Buckeye defensive line, as we all know, they lost Tracy Sprinkle there week 1. So that was a big blow to them. In step for him was Draymond Jones, who's a freshman, a little smaller. Draymond Jones, I believe, is only about 280 pounds. And I think Tulsa kind of took advantage of that. They pounded the ball up the middle in the first half, and it was almost frustrating to watch how they just lined up and ran the same play over and over. The Buckeyes could not stop it, and it was just running straight up the middle. Now we go to this week where you got 2 great backs for the Sooners, and they need to shore that up. Otherwise, it will once again be a long day instead of just a long half, because the Sooner offense will not let them get by with just running the same play over and over. You know, the Sooners will sprinkle in Mayfield, throw it deep, and the Sooners could put up some points quick if they don't shut down their run. So I'm curious to see if maybe the Buckeyes go to Davon Hamilton to start in the middle. The other freshman who was listed as the OR on the depth chart, Hamilton is 300 pounds, so you know, he gives a little more beef up the middle, which might help shut down Perine and Mixon.
Brandon, it seems like Oklahoma's in a similar situation at wide receiver as Ohio State, trying out a number of guys. Obviously, they know what they've got, but in terms of having a steady rotation that's cut down from the 7 or 8, Sterling Shepard was a dynamic guy who was the go-to guy, who was the security blanket and caught 100 balls a year. They don't necessarily, it appears at this point, have that guy, but a number of guys have made plays in the first 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, they are in the same boat as the Buckeyes. The Buckeyes lost Michael Thomas. The Sooners lost Sterling Shepard. They're trying to get someone to step up in that spot. Just like the Buckeyes, they don't really have that yet. They've got Andrews, who is sort of that hybrid tight end, wide receiver, mismatched nightmare, which I think they've been kind of leaning on in the passing game. He's just a mismatch for everyone. I mean, I think I was looking before we spoke. He has 24 catches for his career, and 10 of them have gone for a touchdown. This year he has 5 catches. 3 of them have gone for a touchdown. So he's the one that the Sooners seem to be leaning on to make those big plays right now. And it's going to be a mismatch nightmare for the Buckeyes. It'll be interesting to see where they go with that. Do they have Chris Worley on him, who's a former safety that's now playing linebacker, is Jerome Baker, who started for Booker last week, who was recruited by teams like Florida as a running back. So he's a athlete that could possibly stay on Andrews. You got Malik Hooker back there at safety, who is just a freak right now. I mean, he's got 3 picks in the first 2 games. You got Damon Webb back there at safety, who's been a cornerback his whole life and has now transitioned to safety. So they've got some options to possibly try to slow Andrews down, but he's the big threat right now.
Yeah, he hit up Houston for 3 receptions, but 2 went for scores, a 64-yarder included. Also note that Mixon was used in the passing game against Houston, 5 receptions, and he had a touchdown as well, 60-yarder, 77 total yards and receptions for Mixon. So a guy that the Buckeyes are going to have to handle out of the backfield, both as a rusher and receiver there. Brandon, what's interesting to me is the national narrative here. 2 elite programs, as you described off the top, but in terms of the 2016 storyline, that the Big 12's in big trouble. Basically, you've got losses across the board out of Oklahoma, out of conference, TCU, Oklahoma State now losing to a MAC team at home, Texas kind of carrying the banner, but you would think the worst case scenario is Oklahoma loses this game and then they win the Big 12, but they've got 2 out of conference losses against the 2 teams that would be comparable to comparing the Big 12 against the rest of the nation. Tough go possibly for the Big 12 and maybe a last stand.
Yeah, it's kind of been a rough first couple of weeks for them. As you mentioned, it's kind of all riding on Texas right now if the Sooners do lose on Saturday, because 2 out-of-conference losses to 2 top-tier teams is not going to look good on that resume, even if they run the schedule for the rest of the way. So you kind of are riding all your hopes on Texas if the Sooners lose. So, and I'm not really on the Texas bandwagon yet. So,
yeah, we've seen it once, and it was at home against a very good Notre Dame team, but it was one time. They beat Oklahoma last year too, and they won 5 games. And I'm almost positive they're better than 5 wins, but college football playoff ready, probably not at this point. Yeah. Brandon, we know you do some exceptional work there at the Buckeye Battle Cry. It's only Tuesday morning. Don't know if you've made a pick for this game. If you have, we'll certainly take it. If you're still mulling things over, we totally understand, because I'm usually the guy that pulls the trigger at midnight on Friday night on these things.
No, I've actually been thinking about this game for a while, even before the Houston one. I think the Buckeyes actually match up really well against the Sooners. I don't think anyone should expect either team to score, 40, 50, 60 points like both these teams kind of average. But, I see the Buckeyes winning. I'll go 34-21 is somewhere where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm not going to make a whole lot of fans in the Big 12 or Oklahoma in particular, Brandon, because I did a ratings of all the college football schedules to start the season. So all the Power 5 plus the major independents, 67 schedules. And I generally ranked the Big 12 as the worst conference in America, closely followed by the ACC in my estimation, and ranked the schedules. Plus on top of that, I'm on record of saying about 5 times in the offseason that I thought, especially when the preseason poll came out, that Oklahoma was the most overrated team in America at number 3. Never thought they should have been anywhere close to that. Still a very capable team. I'm certainly not discounting their talent or ability, or Bob Stoops, who I believe gets a bad rap in big games, because I think he's a little bit better in big games than people. The narrative, the games that stick out in people's minds. He has certainly proven himself year after year with a national championship and a number of BCS Bowl appearances and wins. But I think this Oklahoma team's a little bit overrated, or was preseason. Still probably one of the top 10 or 12 teams in America, but should be a good one with Ohio State traveling to Oklahoma. A huge game for each team, obviously. Ohio State could recover, but this is the one comparison that can be made against the big teams nationally. So it's an important one for Ohio State and the Big 10, Oklahoma, and the Big 12. Brandon Zimmerman from the Buckeye Battle Cry helping us break down the Sooners and the Buckeyes. Thanks, Brandon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mark.